Well, everyone, as I've said, we're going to have guests on. And so today we have one of my really close friends who is also a therapist, and she's a fabulous therapist. I can't wait for her to introduce herself to us. And she's going to also talk to us about validation. So, Amber Cedar is a wonderful colleague and, like I said, a friend as well. And I'm going to just let you introduce yourself, Amber.
Yeah. So I'm Amber Cedar, licensed professional counselor. I have a lot of acronyms and light stuff behind my name. But I have a license to practice in both Kansas and Missouri as a professional counselor. I'm also licensed or registered as a play therapist, or I'm not a registered play therapist, but I'm certified as a play therapist, and I'm a registered yoga teacher at a 200 level. And then I'm currently getting my 300-hour training. So in August, I will be 500 hours certified as a yoga teacher. So very exciting time for me. Um, so uh, Practicing in Missouri, where my practice is currently, and it's in Liberty, Missouri, and it's actually in the transition phase of being a solo practice to a group practice. So my name is my practice right now, but it will be changing to Cedar and Lotus Holistic Counseling. So that will be changing very, very soon. So I'm excited to actually bring on some therapists to work with me and just offer, more opportunities for people to get services from a holistic perspective.
And I love your heart and where that comes from. And just like you said, the training that you have very much fits in style with what you see as helping the majority of your clients. You're right. You are busting at the seams. It's so exciting to see that. You have so much to offer other therapists. So I can't wait for you to bring others on board for sure. Super excited about your practice name too. That's a big deal for any therapist to figure out their practice name. So it's
Yeah.
exciting to figure that out. Now that you've talked about your practice and whatnot, so who is your ideal client right now?
Yeah, so ideal clients, so I know there's this question that therapists is like, why? Like, why do we become therapists? And my why has been I wanted to be the therapist that I wish I had when I was a teenager and when I was a young woman in my 20s. And since I didn't get the opportunity to go to counseling myself until I was in my early 20s, I kept thinking, like, who would I want to see if I was, a teenager, emo, which I totally was, and like, what do I want? So my ideal client, or the clients that I tend to see, are teenage girls. I see teenage boys as well,
Nice.
I should say young men. I see teenage women and teenage men. And I see a lot of individual from the LGBT community. I identify as an
Yes.
ally, but I just love working with that demographic. And then women. So working with women. And then doing work around depression, anxiety that comes from a place of trauma. So my specialty is
Yes.
trauma, especially sexual trauma. That's what a
Yes.
lot of my training is in. And so a lot of people that are coming to see me, mostly women, identify as having some level of either sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual trauma, something on that level. And then I approach it from a holistic standpoint.
Nice. Well, and with trauma, you almost have to approach it from a holistic standpoint, because there's, I mean, just like the body keeps the scorebook, it talks so much about how the body holds so much of that. And so, again, yoga and some of the play therapy, even the actions, all of those do play a role. So I, again, love your heart and seeing the whole picture that's necessary in order to treat that client. Now, I mean, shifting gears, and I love that you talked about your why. Thank you so much. But shifting gears, how did COVID impact your
Mhm.
practice?
Yeah, it was really fascinating. So in the area that I'm in Kansas City, we went into shutdown about mid-March. So I remember
Right.
like St. Patrick's Day happened, and then it was like, okay, we're shutting down. So
Right.
I was virtual for about I would say about 2.5 months is
Yeah.
I was virtual. And then I went back into the office in June, at the beginning of June of 2020, and kind of just, it was such a play and wait and see game, so to speak, of like wearing masks with my clients, requiring my clients to wear masks, like communicating to them the importance of the us being safe, but
Right.
also knowing that you need that connection, and some people just need it in person. uh, and because I serve a lot of younger people, some of them were already starting to experience burnout with like Zoom and
Yes.
being online, because a lot of them finished their school year online completely, and so they wanted to come in person.
Yeah.
Also, for young people, particularly adolescents, they don't really feel like they have a lot of privacy in their own homes, to be able
Yes.
to kind of
Yeah.
unpack some of these things. So I felt like it was really important for me to have a space for them to come and to share. Um, so I do still offer virtual sessions, and actually, even before COVID, virtual sessions were available in my practice, because since I work with young people
Yes.
and we live in the Midwest, like weather can be unpredictable. And so like, hey, I may still need a session, but I can't get out of the house
Right.
because it's snowing or it's blizzarding, or like in some kind of weather situation. So I've always had that, but then I still continue to see people virtually. Not a ton. More people coming in person as they become fully vaccinated. But yeah, it's still an option for people. And I tell people now, what's so beautiful about this is like, if your car isn't working, if you don't have a ride, if you just don't feel like leaving your house, like, we
Right.
can do a virtual session. And people now are more open to this, because I think a lot of people thought that I can only do therapy in person.
Right.
And now I recognize that no, I can do it in my own home if I have the space and feel like I have the sense of privacy to be able to work through that.
Right. And I'm sure your clients have really adjusted to, it's nice to have that availability and that option to meet with you at different times. And of course, a lot more flexibility in scheduling for them, or just really more convenient for sure. And so it sounds like your clients actually, through COVID, experienced quite a bit of their own kind of instability, and you tried your best to keep that for them, which I find very admirable. But tell me, how did you kind of see your clients dealing with COVID, and really, what was kind of the biggest need that you felt like you were providing for them during that time?
Yeah, well, like I said before, I think it was a space, like, to be able to come and process things. Once I opened my office back up after a couple of months, it was like, okay, I can get out of the house, and you're really probably the only person I'm gonna see,
Yeah.
like that week, or besides my family, or like maybe a couple of friends that I feel safe with. But then as time went on, it then became this thing of I have a lot of anxiety. So I'm having anxiety about, particularly for my young people, both college students and, high school, middle school students. I feel concerned about going back in person, even though it was a hybrid
Yeah.
situation. So it was like, how do I manage, going to school and being around people and wearing a mask, and like, well, I even see my friends, because my friends may be on a different day than me of the hybrid schedule. How do I manage, making sure I'm getting all my homework assignments done and staying on top of things online? What if I have internet issues and I can't get on a Zoom call? Um, I mean, there was just all of those things.
Sounds like
And then
some of my
also,
anxieties
yeah,
sometimes.
right? Right? Like so many of the things. And then as time went on, it was like, okay, now we're now in 2021, and it's like kids are not doing well in school.
Yeah.
Schools are really trying to figure out what are our options. And so then it's like, adolescents are like, I'm hearing we're going to go back in person. And I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not vaccinated. I'm going to be around all these people. A lot of teens
Yeah.
I see are from bigger school districts, and they're like, I've been used to like having 15 people in class, maybe some less than that because of the hybrid schedule. Now I'm going to have to go back to 30. I'm going to have to learn how to manage this. College students, same thing of like, do I
Yes.
go in person? Do I stay online? Like, do I take online classes? And especially for my college students, ones that graduated from high school in 2020, they had to make a really difficult decision of, do I stay home and go to a community college?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't even know if I'm going to have the normal experience going to a 4-year university where like I'm living in the dorm and stuff, because everything's going to be so limited. So it was just like a lot of like really adult like decisions that I felt like young people were having to make.
That is such a good
Um,
point. That is so true.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, versus, my adult clients that are, like working full time, like have gone to school, or they're not going to school and they're working full time. It's like they kind of knew, I mean, they've had to be flexible too, obviously, but I think young people like at, adolescents up to like young adults like have had to be probably the most flexible in
Yes.
my experience, just with like having to kind of go with the flow when it comes to school and their own futures, versus adults.
No, you're absolutely correct. And what a great point. You're absolutely correct. Like to have to make these big choices, no wonder the anxiety was so high. And I mean, I love that that's your perspective. As you and I have talked in the past, I used to work a lot more with adolescents, and now that of course has shifted. And so it's great to have that yet again perspective of just again how much they were impacted just by COVID and trying to be flexible and having to do so much change and in person out of, and then as we both know, the vaccine is only available, well, now thankfully, but for 12, up to 12. And so I mean
Yeah.
there's still quite a bit of some of course hesitation about what is this new school year going to look like. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you are also trying to cope ahead with some of your clients about what this school year is also going to look like, even with the Delta variant. And from what I heard this morning, the Lambda variant as well.
Oh.
So all these new variants coming out. But so again, I appreciate again the introduction and talking about how COVID, that's really important. As I kind of preface in the beginning, validation has been on my heart, has definitely been something that I feel like, coming from invalidating environments, especially a lot of clients that I'm sure you see as well, whether it's a family environment or a work environment or a relationship of some sort. I feel like there needs to be giant billboards as to what
Hmm.
validation even is and what that looks like. And I just wanted to know, first of all, how do you define validation with your clients?
Yeah, validation, I love this. I love this term because I think it gets thrown around a lot, but I don't know if people have ever really felt it. Like felt like this is what it
Yeah.
feels like in my body and in my
Yes.
heart that I've been validated. So I define validation as, you state something, you express something, you feel something, and a person, whether it's someone super close to you or, a professional, is like, I hear you, I
Yeah.
get it, and I hear you, and there's nothing wrong with you. Like,
Yeah.
I think the preface, or the statement of there's nothing wrong with you, it's okay to feel that, is huge. um
I
so
agree.
that's how I define it.
Well, and I'm sure you model that a lot too. And probably that's half of when clients are coming to see you and talk about what's happening. I feel like that's half of what my practice is too, is validating a lot of and giving
Hmm.
some normalcy around just the emotions that have been felt. Like I said,
Hmm.
if you've grown up in an environment where I don't really know what's valid anymore, I don't even know where emotions fit. and maybe there are two emotions, and that is contentment and anger, or something along the, or fear, or something along those lines. And so really knowing the whole gamut of emotions and where they fit and fit the facts, but like you said, validating those. And so you do this with your clients, you model it. What kind of invalidation do you typically see the most of?
Yeah, I mean, in all on so with my specialty in trauma work, I hear a lot of them invalidating their experience with trauma.
Yes, I'm so glad
Yeah.
you said that. I am so
Yeah.
glad you said that. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So like one of my practices that I do with many clients, and I even do this with my teenagers, the adolescents, even though it's supposed to be for 18 and older, I have them take the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experience
Yes,
Questionnaire,
we do that
and
too.
we
Yeah.
go yeah, and we go through it, and it's a ten questions, like, but it scores it. I give them some some education around why this became about, like why we have the ACEs, what have we learned. We also talk resiliency, because now there was an
Yes.
add-on, probably like 10 years later, where they added on resiliency to it. And so a lot of my clients will discuss, like they go through it and they're just like, yeah, I just don't think this was that bad. Like my childhood wasn't that bad. Like this isn't, why is my number so high? Like, or I'm shocked. Like I can't
Yeah.
believe it. And so we start kind of talking about that and exploring that and picking it apart. And it's just like, oh wow, like maybe this is a big deal. Like maybe this is why I'm having these symptoms of depression and anxiety, and maybe panic attacks, and I complex PTSD, and because they
Yes.
just, that's their normal. That was their normal. And so they
I'm
were
so
so,
glad.
yeah.
I'm really glad you hit on that because you're absolutely correct. Like I'm minimizing this. And again, that is one of the terminologies we've discussed in past podcasts, but it's that minimizing or maximizing at kind of the worst times, unfortunately. And so you're absolutely correct. I'm even minimizing what has happened or the environment that I've grown up in. And I'm sure you also have to have the discussion about this is not good versus bad. It's just what is, right? And just bringing out that awareness and taking out that judgment as well, right?
Yes. Yes.
I'm really glad you hit on that because that self invalidation is really the hard thing to try and conquer with clients. So how do you teach self validation to clients?
Yeah. Well, I think it's good, when you're talking about validation, it's good first to develop a relationship with the client where they know that when I am validating them, it's coming from a place of care and compassion, and not a place of like, I'm seeking something in return,
Right.
which I think is what many people who have trauma in their history, is that there is possibly a manipulation tactic or a quid pro quo of like, I'm going to give you this validation because then I want something in return. So it's building that trust with the client, and then it's starting to work through the physical symptoms of, or the how the body is communicating to you that this was difficult. So
Yes.
when we start discussing these experiences, I stop the client and I ask them, like, what are you feeling in your body right now? Like, tell me what you're experiencing, because to me the body gives us so much information that we just cut off
Yes.
and we don't listen to. And so I do this activity, and then I start talking through self-soothing, or even invoking some type of yogic technique, some meditation techniques on, for one, I'll teach you one now if you're open to it.
Yeah.
So the heart center is our relationship with others. So it's a
Yes.
relationship with ourself and a relationship with others. So what I have my clients do is, if they're feeling something and it's hard for them to validate, I have them place their hands on their heart,
Mm.
and either I actually prefer skin on skin. So like I see your shirt, and so
Yeah.
you could actually
Yeah.
do skin on skin, right?
Yeah.
Or I can have them bring their hands down, and then I have them just close their eyes if they feel comfortable, or find a soft gaze, and just tell themselves, I am safe.
I'm safe. Yes.
as I'm here right now, I am safe. All is well within me, and everything I'm feeling is true. I believe myself. I believe what I'm feeling. And then I have them practice some breathing and then releasing the hands. Sometimes my clients actually keep their hands on their heart the
Oh,
rest of the
yeah.
session because they
Why
love that
not?
feeling. Yeah,
Yes.
and from what I hear, and even I feel it within myself, is you immediately feel calm. Like
Oh my
just
gosh,
placing your
yes.
hand, yeah, you just immediately feel this sense of calm.
Well, and
Um
I'm getting
I
emotional, just like, oh my gosh, have I
Mhm.
stopped today? Have I even taken a
Yeah,
breath like that for myself, or have I just been busy? And so, like, even that stopping moment is just like, that's just beautiful. It
mhm,
connected so much. So yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I think that in itself, like you said, the holistic approach and really telling people to connect with their body and to trust their gut. We talk about that a lot on the
mhm,
podcast.
yes,
And I think that's often missed, and we don't even know what that even feels like. What does that mean to
mm,
trust my gut? And just
mhm,
having that experience with them in session of you are in a place where you're safe, and in that moment you are. And so really studying the body and the mind and even the emotionality of that moment is clearly, you touched a nerve for me even.
mhm.
And it's got to be super beneficial for your clients, and I'm sure you do that more than once with them. Is that right?
Yeah, and I even recorded myself doing a meditation that I give them. So I actually
Nice.
send them a recording, an
Yeah.
audio of me, and I'm like, "Hey, when you're feeling these feelings, like, and you have availability, like, play that." It's only a few minutes, but like I've had clients say, "Oh my gosh, I played it over and over again.
Right.
It just like I just needed it." But yeah, I think having we as therapists begin with being the voice of validation. And then as we teach our clients these skills, we then teach them how to ask and be validated from the people in their lives, how to carry
Absolutely.
that outside of the therapy office. And as I tell many of my clients, my goal is to not have you be in therapy the rest of your life. Like my goal is to
Right.
teach the things that you need so then you can go out the world and practice them. Not to say you can't ever come back, but
Right.
it's I'm your beginning point. And then but I'm not the end point. Like you are the one that's carrying these things with you. So,
No, and that's such a good just reminder to us as therapists. Like, you're right. The goal is to not be in treatment the rest of your life. The goal is to empower the client and have them learn life skills and change where they feel as needed, and to feel empowered enough to again go out and do things. And of course, in DBT we call it maintenance mode, where you come back and you need
yeah.
us at different times. And so I'm sure
Yeah.
that's probably what it's referred to
Yeah.
in majority of treatments. But no, I love that. You're absolutely correct. We cut off the rest of our bodies so much. So
Mhm.
I love that approach so much. Uh and just it's just having me think of all of the different skills as to where this would fit really well with DBT. And so I again, I love the married mint of all of
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah.
well, I so much appreciate your input on validation. Boy, I think this is going to be a hard episode to top for sure. Can't wait to have you
Oh,
back and to talk about other things
yeah.
as well, because I know
Yeah.
you have vast information, and picking your brain is even better. But I appreciate you giving your input on validation. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off?
I don't think so. This has been so wonderful, and I feel so honored that you asked me to do this. And yeah, I mean, just like hope that, this is helpful to all the people that listen to it and like they can walk away from listening to this and be like, yeah, like I'm ready to validate. I'm ready to feel good and honor myself because I think
Yes.
think that that's something that's so hard. And I love the question about self-validation because, as you know, in your work in DBT, and I do some DBT work, but I
Yeah.
think the work that you and I do together, not together, but together maybe talking about
Yes.
it, is that we so much seek validation outside of ourselves.
Hmm.
And really, the validation comes back to us. It's like, how do I feel?
Right.
Like, how do I feel walking in this body? How do I feel
Right.
showing up every day? And so practicing those self-validations, I like skills is really is the best thing possible versus
Yeah.
going out and asking 20 people, am I safe? Am I okay? Because
Right.
it's they don't know because they don't live in your body.
Well, and it's almost like I don't know if you've seen the really funny TikTok videos of the colander where I'll turn, whatever, but it's the same thing. Like it's the colander. It's just never enough, right? When we're getting it from others,
Never
it's
enough.
it's wonderful
Yes.
and it's just not enough. Versus we know a lot more about what we're looking for and what the and just bottom line, if we're connected with our body, it just helps us to know what we need. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, Amber, if they want to follow
Yeah.
you or even if they wanted to work with you, how can they
Yeah.
connect with you?
So it's a work in progress because it's going to change with the new name change. But for right now, people can find me on ambercedar.com. So I'm sure you'll give them the info, but my last name is SEATER.com. I'm also on Instagram at Amber Cedar MALPC. So I like to post stuff on Instagram. And yeah, those are probably the two biggest places that you can connect with me. Maybe someday I'll have a podcast and can have you come on. And yeah, so
Well, I just I see you coming on more because you're a great friend, you're a great ally, like I said. And you just bring so much to the table. You reword things in ways that I don't word them, and I love that. Uh,
mm,
just because I think we have the same heart, it's just a different voice sometimes. So, uh,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait for you to be back on the show. Connect. I'll have all of that in our blog at findingmiddlepath.com. And as always, I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm so excited. Thank you for doing this so much. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.